дипломатическое членство и
Good morning, everyone. Nice to have you here. Welcome to this new webinar we are hosting together with our friends from 4-H Agency. It's nice to have Ivan and Dmitry back again because our last webinar was also together. But now we also have royalty from the 4-H Agency, the founder himself, Pavel Dergachev. So, guys, today we're going to talk about, our guests are going to talk about the regulatory shifts in the emerging Eastern European gambling markets, such as Georgia, Armenia, and Ukraine. And let me just like quickly introduce you to the experts again. So you can see on the screen we have Ivan Kurochkin. Hi, Ivan. Nice to have you back.
Hi, Zoltán. Hi, Zoltán. Great pleasure to have you here. Great pleasure to work with the Hipther agency once again. We're eager to do more and more webinars with you, and it's our great pleasure that you allows us to share some insights on this, and a huge pleasure to work with you again. For those who were not attending our last webinar, you can also see the link somewhere else in the Hipther agency resources where you can find related to Curacao and flexible licenses. But yes, once again, thank you very much, Zoltán. Huge pleasure.
All right, nice to have you here. We also have Dmitry Hotsyn, who is also here in the last webinar. Hi, Dmitry.
Hi, my pleasure to continue our work together.
All right, thank you so much. That was short and sweet. And like I told you, we have Pavel Dergachev, founder at 4-H Agency. Pavel, nice to have you here.
Yeah, I'm happy to meet you as well. Just one question, if I'm audible and if you hear me
Yes.
well. Okay,
Yes.
okay, fantastic. It's pleasure to continue the previous conversation about flexible license because sounds like we will go through it again and we will check if this topic can cover flexible licenses as well.
All right, guys. So as last time, I will go quiet and let the experts speak. The topics include navigating evolving regulatory landscapes, opportunities for global operators, implementing responsible gambling practices, and of course, capitalizing on market growth potential. So, guys, the floor is yours. I will be here in the background taking the questions from the audience and letting you guys know if they have some questions that they would like to ask you guys. So you can take it from here, guys.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Zoltán. Huge pleasure. Yeah, Dmitry, could you
Thank
please
you.
share? Yeah.
Zoltán, the only thing I would ask you to give me sharing permission so that I may share my screen and put our presentation online. Yeah, thank you. So here we are, I think.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone, once again. Good morning to everyone. Thank you very much for having the time to have to get acquainted with our webinar, with our thoughts on the evolving markets in Eastern Europe, like Ukraine, Georgia, and Armenia. As you can see from our names and surnames, obviously, this is our, I would say, core markets where we are working a lot and dealing with a lot of questions related to the regulations, to the market potentials, to the hurdles that you can face on this market. So we decided to share a couple of thoughts, couple of ideas, and couple of information related to these particular markets. So as you can see from the name of the webinar, yeah, we'll talk about regulatory shift in Eastern European emerging gambling markets. Let's proceed to the next slide, I guess. Yes. Oh, yeah. Great. Yeah, so today we're gonna speak about the evolvement of these markets, taking account this market history. We will talk about a little bit about the gambling statistics over the years. Obviously, as we are lawyers by trade, but we're not doing a lot of lawyer stuff, but we're still digging into the licensing and regulations. Unfortunately, this is the things every operators are looking into their markets should face and should adhere to. So yes, some boring stuff related to licensing and regulation. For some, obviously not boring, but we'll see how it goes. Obviously, we are quite sure that we need to speak about the market strengths and the competitive landscape that operators are facing, and how the basically markets are saturated in terms of the players who are presented on the market, and basically if there any room for any new operators. Obviously there is also always a room, but we need to be careful in terms of with whom we will be competing. And we would not be us if we were not about the developments that are happening on the markets. This is our plan for today's webinar, and yes, let's proceed to the market history, I would say. We have tried to summarize all these facts related to the development of the markets. It's quite interesting to look at all of these markets like Ukraine, Georgia, and Armenia in the history perspective, because this is the countries where the regulations in some countries became not very long ago. The gambling became regulated, but in some countries it has become regulated since 2006, 2007, something like that. Speaking of Ukraine, start with Ukraine, obviously. As you may know, all forms of gambling were banned until 2020. Well, it's not partially true. The gambling was regulated until 2009, if I'm not mistaken, but my Ukrainian colleagues will, yeah, they're confirming that this is correct. Before the nicest girl, Yulia Tymoshenko, decided to close all the gambling business due to some fires in gambling establishments. But after that, we actually faced the development of the gambling market in Ukraine in a very, strange form, I would say. Despite that, all forms of gambling were banned. We were observing the rise of the lottery market. But we need to be careful here what is considered from the lottery perspective here. It's not the lottery like we all know the lotteries, like, I don't know, government lotteries, like sport lotteries, I don't know, any other lotteries. Actually, the well-known gambling verticals like sports betting, like casinos, were actually formed in the package of these lottery products, I would say, and they were existing until the 2020, before actually the gambling, real gambling, I would say, in its common understanding, like the verticals, were legalized. And basically, Ukraine proceed to the market where you have all verticals regulated with the possibility to obtain land-based and online licenses. And right now, the gambling market is developing. Well, at least it was developing before the war started. But right now, there are also a lot of things happening on the market, which we will dive into a little bit later. But before I proceed to any other countries, I would be happy to ask Dmitry and Pavel on their comments on the development of the Ukrainian market, if they have any comments to say. I obviously know that they definitely have something to say, so I will give the floor to them in terms of this market.
Yeah, I think I'll start myself. The general way this market developed is quite similar. We have some trigger events. We have a huge boom after that trigger event, and we are coming to the rather harder ways to operate due to market restrictions related to advertisement, etc., etc. And Ukraine probably the only market that do it in reverse. Our trigger event is banning the industry, after which we see a huge rise of lottery markets, starting from just typical online operated websites to the just variability of different slot halls throughout the entire country, just masked for us lottery sales point. And but the general tendency is quite similar for these markets as well as for some other European, especially Eastern European markets. We see a trigger event, we see a huge rise of the industry, and now the governments are dealing with the aftermath of such a drastic raise. That's why in the right section of the slide, we're seeing like quite a similar wording of what's happening here. Market restrictions, market restrictions, market restrictions. It doesn't mean that these markets are dead for the near future, but still it may be like a source of golden ore, but unfortunately the most prominent days of wild development, wild gambling capitalism seems to be over here.
Yeah, I would like to add some key points about the evolution itself. So it's very good that it was mentioned that the lottery market was in a rise. And I would say that it was a very common situation for all post-Soviet countries when the government was choosing the less toxic vertical to be regulated and to be introduced. At the same time, the rules of this vertical was not specified in the proper way. Since that, I would say in Kazakhstan, in Russia, in Ukraine, it was pretty similar situation when a lot of gaming operations was covered by so-called lottery markets, and the requirements for organizing this lottery were very simple, and literally anyone was able to organize the lottery in some point. The other point is, which was mentioned, is the market restrictions on the rise. It is very good to understand that we all know that it is very different nature of these market restrictions, and when we go from country to country, we may notice that in some countries, the market restrictions goes from the politicians to get some points before the elections, such as it was happening in Georgia. In Armenia, there are very solid operators who are able to influence these restrictions and who can, I would say, who is already, who has well-settled business already, who has all necessary certifications in place, and they are influencing the government and politicians to implement something like secured market and to raise the standards for I wouldn't say that low developed countries, but to raise the standards when it is not necessary, in fact. And when we go to Ukraine, I would say that the key point is the reserve funds. At first, we are talking here about the things which are not hidden, which are on top of everything. So maybe there are some other reasons behind, but we need to know that all this nature of restrictions is very simple but different.
Thank you very much, Pavel. I think that I would be also the moderator of this webinar in order to give our audience a right magnitude of what we are going to do, because if we will dig into the history of each and every country and the problem they are facing, we will not move from basically from this slide. But in any case, I will just give a couple of words related to Georgia and Armenia. Despite the Pavel thoughts on the hiding of the gambling products into the lottery products, Georgia and Armenia choose another road. They actually, in mid-2000s, they adopted the regulation of gambling, and they actually allowed most land-based, but at that time, because obviously in 2006 and 2007, it was mostly devoted to the land-based business. And actually, the interesting fact, let's start with Georgia, for example. I don't know if anyone have been to Batumi. It's the city on the Black Sea coast in Georgia. And before adoption of the gambling law, Batumi was, like small provincial city with not a lot of attractions, I would say. But when the law was adopted and the law prescribed a lot of tax and license benefits for the future licensees, Batumi has become the mecca of the land-based casinos, and it actually boosts a lot of companies to go into the Georgia and specifically to Batumi to actually open the casinos, open the hotels. And if you look at the pictures of Batumi in 2006, for example, 2007, and right now, you will see it's like become like a new Dubai in Georgia. So we can actually see from our own eyes how the right adoption of the relevant regulations actually allows the particular cities, particular government to develop infrastructure, to develop, I don't know, to develop a lot of working places. So basically to do the city and the government better in terms of the facilities that everybody can see on the ground. So this is actually one of the best examples of how good adoption and right adoption of the gambling regulations in a right manner has become basically the boost for the development of the whole things around. Nevertheless, if we go to, for example, like to Armenia, this was not the case with Armenia because actually the regulations until 2023 and 2024 were a little bit outdated, and the places where casinos can be placed were quite limited, I would say. This didn't have such kind of effect as Georgia had in terms of the adoption of the gambling regulations. But we can see on this slide, once again, market restrictions on the rise, which were happening right now. As I mentioned that in 2024, Armenia decided to redevelop the whole gambling framework and to adopt more detailed and more restrictive regulations. But nevertheless, they have not regulated the B2B industry, and this allows a lot of B2B studios, huge one B2B studios like B2B companies, I would say like Evolution and any other huge B2B providers to place their operations within the country and to develop also working places for the local people and also to develop the economy as well. So you can see this is the balance where you regulate casinos, where you regulate land-based establishments, and where you don't regulate B2B stuff. And the guys are actually moving. There are a lot of studios there which supply content all over the world. Do you have something to add? Please feel free. Just a couple of final thoughts here and we can move further.
No, I think we may move to more contiguous slides.
Perfect. Let's go. Yeah, could you please share some insights on the gambling statistics over the years, how this developed, so we can see the magnitude of the development of the market in terms of numbers, not in terms of some you know, like abstract things, but just real numbers, I would say.
So yeah, let's go. First and foremost, I do believe these slides will be the hardest to present because unfortunately, still for this day, the market statistics for Eastern European countries is quite lagging behind something we may see in developed Western countries. So it's really hard to know the real market size and differentiate between the regulated market and gray or black parts of that market. But still, Ukraine is quite a prominent gambling market here. We see quite a strong rise since the years of legalization of the industry is 2020, and it's basically doubled despite Ukraine being at war since the beginning of 2022. But what's more interesting is that the real numbers on Ukraine are likely be 2 and even 3 times higher than what we are seeing here, just because it's quite hard to estimate this sprawling industry in Ukraine. It's basically like hundreds, if not thousands, of non-regulated online casinos, online betting websites operating in Ukraine, especially given that quite high number of quite high percentage of population of Ukraine is into crypto. Crypto is rather common way to pay for goods and services in Ukraine now. there are lots of crypto-based casinos which are not obviously included into these statistics. So yeah, realistically, I think we may speak about approximately 500 million Ukrainian GGR for 2023, and this number is growing. It's likely that the growth will stop a bit since 2024 due to market restrictions, due to another turmoils with the Gambling Commission in Ukraine, but still one of the most interesting market, and it's not still saturated. There are a lot of opportunities here. We will, I think, talk about that a bit later. But for now, yeah, let's keep in mind Ukrainian numbers we are seeing in official statistics are likely 2-3 times lesser than the reality we are having in Ukraine. So, any comments, guys?
No, we can proceed further.
Okay. Georgia, again, quite an interesting situation with the official statistics and the general data you may see over the internet. Just for reference, we are using H2 data on gambling markets. Basically, we see quite relevant numbers for all countries, but for Georgia. Essentially, we don't understand how Georgia may generate approximately 1 billion in GGR. We do believe this number a bit higher than the reality we are seeing in Georgia on the ground, but especially given that the GDP of Georgia is approximately 21 billion for the last years, and yeah, we do believe that such a great GGR is not something we may see on the ground when we start business in Georgia. But what we have to say is that Georgian players are quite active in the way they are betting, they are playing, and that is why, despite quite a small population, Georgia is a hub for a lot of local brands, and they're not just operating from Georgia to foreign markets, but still they're interested in local players. And that's why Georgia is another opportunity in Eastern Europe that we may consider when deciding where to launch operations.
Yeah, we can move further.
Yeah, let's move to Armenia. Yeah, Armenia obviously is quite a small market. There are not a lot of just locals who are ready to play, but statistics on Armenia is especially tricky, given that Armenia is a huge hub for B2B industry, as Vanya mentioned. Obviously, B2B services are not regulated, so they're not coming into the statistics here. They're rather IT services, streaming services, etc., etc. So in terms of Armenia, we are seeing that the real market numbers may be closer to hundreds of million, and that would be quite an accurate estimation to add here.
Yeah, but the core essence is B2B market. Yeah, B2B market is a huge one in Armenia, but it actually doesn't fall to any calculation in terms of the gambling market size, I would say, because it's just like the companies who develop IT stuff or the companies who streams the content. So basically, this falls under the general, I would say, economic profiles of the companies of the Armenian company. Yeah.
So talking about recent developments and trends.
Yep. They want me to start, or no? You can.
As you wish.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So coming to Ukraine, our biggest concern here is that the government is not sure how to regulate the market, which started to boom and is still on the prowl for getting bigger and bigger. For now, we are seeing quite a hectic attempts to regulating the advertisement section of the market, licensing, etc. What's obvious for now is that the government is trying to crack down on the industry. We are seeing crackdowns on licensed operators. We are seeing hundreds of websites being added to the list of blocked URLs. We are seeing payment restrictions, especially from the National Banking of Ukraine, who withheld several licenses from payment systems in Ukraine in 2023 and in the beginning of this year. But what's more intriguing is whether the Gambling Commission, which was charged with the relaunch of the market, will be saved. It seems like the current Gambling Commission will be transformed in some new regulatory authority, probably with some other chain of command. But for now, it would be quite a challenge to get into Ukrainian market right from the start, because potentially we are facing the situation when the country will start reforming the regulatory authority, but without, as always, some clear deadline when the reform will be finished. Yeah, Van.
I just wanted to quickly add that, speaking of the recent development, the thing that is not mentioned because it hasn't been developed and it's not going to develop in the nearest future is the absence of the reformation of the tax structure of the work of the gambling business. This is one of the key issues. We'll definitely speak about it a little bit later in more details. But overall, we should say that in terms of the recent developments, which is not developing, which I definitely wanted to highlight, is obviously I would say the government doesn't have an ability, doesn't have a desire to make the tax framework more workable for the operators, taking into account huge license fees, which we'll dig into a little bit later. So this is one of the key issues that the Ukrainian market is facing, but this is just a quick comment related to recent developments.
Okay. So Georgia and Armenia here are quite similar in what they're trying to implement and do with their gambling markets. First and foremost, they're trying to synchronize this with more developed markets from Central and Western Europe, especially if we are talking about questions of certification and compliance measures. Apart from that, again, we are talking about gambling related restrictions like ads, payments, etc. What's interesting in Georgia that simultaneously with trying to put the local industry at bay, they are trying to make some kind of Frankenstein from their new online casino licenses. They are essentially allowing to operate two brands under a single license, one for local population and one for international players. And what's interesting, they will offer 5% GGR tax on all non-Georgian profits generated from gambling. And this is something in between like normal local license and what we are calling flexible or offshore license. You are not allowed to put like 50 or 100 brands under one license, but still you are getting a base for operation in quite a developed market with more or less but understandable rules of game, and you may attract both international players and local players, and for that you are even getting a way better tax treatment for your international operations. And regarding Armenia, I think the only prominent thing we may tell about Armenian market in 2024 is their attempt to reform the really outdated legislation. And for now, what's good, it's way more synchronized with what we are seeing in competitive markets in Romania, other Eastern European markets. And still, what's interesting, Armenia is not into updating its B2B framework, which is practically non-existent for now. And it has its downsides, obviously, but the The upsides here is that we're still seeing quite an interest from international operators to put their operations, B2B side of operations, in Armenia, and I think that's the way to proceed here. Armenia obviously may not be a huge market in itself for B2C operations, but B2B is a sub-industry that Armenia shall to preserve here.
I just wanted to add a couple of points related to basically the trends happening in Ukraine, Georgia, and Armenia in overall things. From my perspective and from my day-to-day work with the international clients, I would say that Georgian trend in adhering the most European compliance requirements are the most European and modern one. And actually, this is justified by the fact that at least 3 international gambling groups are presented on the market. And in terms of the competition, it's, I would say, one of the most competitive markets, because when you have 3 international gambling brands presented on the market, this is definitely hard to compete. And overall regulation, especially to the product, for example, Georgia also has the most strict one and the most, I would say, complex requirements to the particular product of the operator in terms of certification and other stuff as well. Yeah, just a couple of points in overall overview, I would say.
Moving further.
Yep.
So these are quite hard slides always for us to present. We are not into talking about all the intricacies of licensing in these or that country, so we are trying to make it as useful and as concise as possible, but still sorry for some legalish stuff here. So licensing regime is quite similar for the countries. Practically all verticals are regulated. Ukraine does not officially have a license for land-based poker. It's only allowed pokers is allowed in land-based casinos and in something called sport poker clubs, which are not specifically into the frame of the gambling regulation, but still both all countries here, Ukraine, Georgia, Armenia, they allow online casinos, online bettings, as well as their land-based counterparts. And in terms of pricing, Ukraine here is the worst example of how not to implement license fees with huge tax obligations. Ukrainian licenses are quite highly priced, and it's the license is not eternal. These license fees are paid on a yearly basis, and what you may see interesting here is that betting license is quite pricey, and it's has just historical reason, I would say, because Ukrainian betting industry was established by several brands like Favbet, Parimatch, etc. And Ukrainian government, when trying to legalize the market, was trying to get to them first. And well, strictly speaking, Ukrainian market is okay with this amount of license fees, provided that the tax reform will be held in the near future. But still, we are talking about tax reform since, I think, the beginning of 2021, and we are not seeing any sufficient progress. But on the other side, it's well compensated by the sheer size of Ukrainian market. We are talking about 40 million persons of addressable market, and they are quite into gambling. They are quite sophisticated. They are looking for new products, and that's why, despite the license fees, Ukrainian market is still interesting for international operators, as well as local brands like B2B brands trying to get into the B2C domain. Georgia is offering quite a balanced view between the amount of taxes it wants to collect and the amount of license fees it's collecting. And historically, Georgian market was quite tied to land-based operations. That's why until December 2024, Georgian online casino license are not officially separated license. Is just an extension of land-based license. And that's why, yeah, we're seeing quite a difference in numbers for opening casinos in different regions. And online, and for now, online industries are tied to land-based industries. But again, from the end of 2024, online licenses may be obtained separately from land-based licenses.
Quick comment here. In terms of the separation of the license, it was already implemented early in terms of this, that online license can be obtained separately from the land-based, but from December 2024, you can obtain online license, which is workable for offshore operations. I would just additionally add in terms of Georgia, it is quite important to understand that overall number of the license fee quite tied to the particular place of the land-based establishment you are going to actually establish. Apologies for this repeated words. Basically, it is quite, I would say, thorough and very, logical understanding of the Georgian government related to the development of the regions which are not developed. And that's why in Batumi, for example, practically at the beginning of the regulation, there were no license fees at all, and some also exemption from the taxes. So basically, the government pushes operators to open in particular parts of the Georgia land-based establishment in order to develop the particular regions. So this is kind of logical, and the license fees are not so huge, I would say, especially comparing to Ukraine, and that's why it's quite beneficial and I would say logical work of the government in terms of regulation of the gambling business.
So let's move to Armenia. Here it's quite simple. You pay 1.5 million for online casino license, which for some reasons it's called online lottery license, and same amount for betting license, and you are free to go with your online offering.
Yeah, we also have a couple of questions from the viewers of our webinars. I would say that we will answer them for all other things. We will answer them in the end of the webinar, but I would just say that we have a question. If you have $1 million US, which locations, which country you should expand into? I would actually recommend that you should obtain flexible license and spend all this money to the marketing or to the development of your own platform, because despite of the amount of the license fees, you also have to have your product ready. So I would definitely recommend to go to the offshore license and to spend this money on the marketing. And I see that Pavel is giving me, I would say, appreciation. Yeah, but you can also jump into and comment whatever you can here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Ivan, because at this point we do not know what will be the banking and financial sector behavior in terms of the holding and obtaining Georgian license if you are targeting offshore players. So here it can be lots of surprises when you are starting the operations. Even the bank acquiring, even the KYC procedures. We all know that Georgian government and Georgian regulators, they already prepared some kind of the roadmap regarding the requirements for this type of the license. But at the same time, we all know that since you are starting the international operations, the Georgian government is not only the one government who will be in charge of it, and it will be lots of it can be lots of chances that other governments, as well as it was happening with Malta in United Europe, will be restricting these operations on their territories.
Okay, perfect. Yes.
Well, I think with 1 million, you have just to use that million to make it 5 million, or rather 10 million, and then we might talk about getting into local markets.
I guess here we should talk not about the gambling business. We should talk about some investment stuff of how to expand your 1 million to other millions.
Yeah, if it's well declared and taxed, and you are ready to spend that money, just invest in some existing operator and get a share of their profits. That will be more beneficial, for 1 mil.
That's true. Okay. Yeah.
So finally, we're talking about taxes and the biggest pain for Ukrainian operators. The idea is simple. The tax code was adopted in 2011, and it wasn't quite updated since then in terms of how the gambling operations are taxed. And the initial idea in 2011 was that the market will be relaunched in 1 or 2 years. So they put numbers that in their opinion and in that point in time was quite reasonable for gambling industry, but over the year, obviously, this idea doesn't hold up well. But still, throughout the industry, casino, betting, they are paying casinos and online casinos, although it's not stated clearly in the legislation, they are subject to 18% GGR, and in addition, they are paying the corporate income tax. And what's quite problematic is that GGR is not deductible for corporate income tax purposes. So here we are having probably not a double, but 1.5 times the taxation of the same revenue that the company are getting. Still, Ukrainian authorities are quite into increasing the amount of money they are getting from the industry, and they report, I think, 2.5 times the increased amount of revenue collected from the gambling industry in 2023 in comparison to 2022. But still, you are seeing clearly the issue. We have a high licenses on a higher end, I would say, of the throughout the entire region. Then we are having quite a high tax burden and corporate income tax in addition to everything. The only exclusion here is slot machine. They're paying 10% of their GGR, but again, it's quite well compensated by the amount of money the operators have to spend to get a license, and they're in addition paying for each slot machine. Yeah, Ivan?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly comment on terms of the, I would say, huge tax burden on the gambling operators. This is not about the usual question when the gambling business is, he's giving a lot of comments. Oh, we do not earn a lot. The taxes are so big. We cannot operate. This is not the usual question here. There is a concept called the channelization rate. Basically, if you have the more requirements, especially financial one, you have on the market, the more black market you will receive in terms of the return for this high financial burden. So when we talk about high license fees, very high license fees, when we talk about huge taxes, definitely we will observe a situation where the black market is going to grow. So there was a study which actually analyzes like 10 European countries. And in 10 European countries, it is quite straightforward that when you have a lot of financial liabilities, like taxes, like license fees, like, I don't know, bank guarantee, like the requirements to the charter capital, whatever financial requirements you have, the more black market you have. So this is always the question of balance between these huge numbers and the real operations, I would say. Because a lot of our clients in Ukraine, especially local operators, are saying that, okay, guys, this is okay, a lot of financial things, how we should operate. Our just financial model doesn't add up. So this is one of the pivotal questions in terms of the taxes. And once again, this is not the question where the gambling business, is breaking that, oh, we're so little, we don't know how to pay these taxes. No, this is not the common situation here. This is really the headache of the market, and which leads to actually the increasement of the black market itself.
Yeah, I think another quite a drastic example of the issues with the channelization rate is France. Here, the online industry is just booming, and you're seeing huge numbers of GGR for illegal operations. Why? Because for one, online casinos are prohibited, and the government is planning to make them legal in somewhere closer to 2030. And sport betting is booming as well, but due to quite a high level of restrictions, like possibility to promote your apps, promote your brand, limited option as to how you are getting to a customer. Just a huge chunk of the industry, and it's a growing chunk, is going to Curacao operators, to big operators, Anjuan operators, and other offshore license holders, but not to local industry. And that's particularly interesting in the context of the amount of money that the French government is spending on trying to combat the illegal operations. French gambling authority may block 100, 200, 300 websites per day, and it's still updated. You are getting all that updates from the regulator that yeah, guys, we blocked another 1,000 of websites, and but yeah, you're opening your spam folder and you're seeing like 10 new offering for this market, just because blocking is not efficient. Make it work for operations is. And that's what we are trying always to say when we are working with the regulators and governments. Guys, you may not just kill the industry because you say we will not allow payments, we will not allow access to your websites. It's just monkey business. You have to put your drawings on the table and divide the way how the industry will operate. You had it, not try to kill it. And talking about heading, Georgia here is another example. 15% across the board and 5% for foreign operations since starting from 1st December 2024. Again, an example of a reasonable approach to the industry. Which may not be said about Armenia. For now, the real taxation of gambling in Armenia is made on the level of corporate income tax, especially it's applicable to local B2B providers, and on the level of players themselves with winning tax, 10% for smaller winnings, 5% for bigger winnings. I think any winning of 12.5K in dollars is subject to 5% tax. So guys, anything to add about taxation?
No, Georgia is one of the most heading examples, at least in our chart, I would say. But overall, yeah, quite understandable. And Pavel, maybe you have something to add, so please feel free. If not, we will proceed further.
No, gents, everything is good.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's go and try to summarize what we are having now with these markets, and why still, despite all that troubles, you may think these markets are interesting for expansion if you've got more than 1 million in free cash. Ukraine, obviously taxes and license costs, which is unfortunately is caused by and added to political instability. Still, Ukraine may be interesting market, but you need to understand that if you are looking for some bay when you may just sit flat and operate on the established rule, Ukraine is not your option. It's big opportunity, but again, big risk. You need to be ready to flex with the Ukrainian legislation, flexing and enforcement practices here. Georgia, despite their attempt, we are still seeing cases of quite unestablished way to license the operations, of getting certifications, etc. I wouldn't say it's that big of a problem, but again, if you're present in some Western brand looking for something quite established as your local market, Georgia may be similar in some ways, but you will need to have quite a strong advisor on the ground, just because some provisions are not clear at all, some provisions are not publicly available, some information as is drafted on the official sources is not what you are seeing in the reality. If you are ready to overcome it, a huge and interesting market is waiting for you. Georgian players are quite into the game. Offshore operations are upcoming, and the market is well grown and established. It's unlikely that we will see some drastic changes in Georgian legislation in comparison with Ukraine or Armenia. Something that, I mean, the industry is something that established itself in the Georgian economy, and it's not going anywhere. So,
I just wanted to add in terms of maybe the overall perspective that I totally agree with you, Dmitry, on the fact that Ukraine is experiencing a lot of political turbulence, and being in the constant condition of the war definitely doesn't bring a lot of investors into the country, especially international one. Also, I would say that once again, financial burdens related to the taxes, related to the license fees, definitely do not make the situation better, in spite of the overall magnitude of the market, which is quite promising, taking into account the number of the population. I would say the engagement of players as well. So I would say that it's still promising market in terms of its capacity, in terms of its development strategies. But overall, right now, Ukraine wouldn't be the best option to choose. Speaking of the Georgia, indeed, Dmitry, very correct, mentioned that a lot of regulations from the first side seem to be quite clear and quite logical. But there is a huge problem related to that some rules of operation of the market are not actually written in any legislative act, which also creates some kind of ambiguity related to the implementation of the particular provisions of the law and the rules, how operators and B2B providers should act. Also, I would say that B2B license framework in Georgia is quite promising and attracts a lot of operators and a lot of B2B providers to be included in the pipeline of entering the new markets. Speaking of the Armenian, I would say that overall that the market is quite interesting, despite the fact that a lot of local players have already gained their market share, and it would be quite hard to compete with such big operators like VBET, like Digitain. So yeah, this is the home of these big companies which operates all over the world. But it is quite, I would say, interesting in terms to establish the B2B studios and to establish B2B provision services, as once again right now the overall B2B regulatory framework is not developed at all, and this can be an option for the studios which are looking into the places where they can establish their studio and to do it in a cost-efficient way. Yeah, just these comments on overall assessment of these markets, as we are working a lot with them in our day-to-day life, I would say.
Well, and probably one last point I wanted to add about Ukraine is that currently there is a huge opportunity to get into distressed assets. Some companies are not active, licensed, but not doing any operations. Some companies are still indecisive as to whether they have to continue operating in Ukraine or just seek ways out, and that's why potential investors may be looking into buying out distressed assets. And it is something that would obviously require time and budget, but in comparison to other markets, Ukraine is plenty with potential distressed assets that may be bought for cheap and more or less be ready to restart operating on the new brand or just using even old brand with potential switch to the investors brand in the near future. And that is something that would obviously require additional planning and a team of experts in your home offices and in Ukraine as well. But the potential ROIs here are quite considerable, despite all what's happening in Ukraine.
Maybe Pavel, do you have anything to add in terms of overall assessment of challenges and market opportunities here?
No, I really do not have anything to add, and you know my position that since even considering all these challenges happening in Ukraine, I still believe that it is one of the most attractive markets now in this region.
That's true.
And it is a big population. It is still reasonable, I would say, household income, and everything will be good. Regarding Georgia and Armenia, you know, the markets are so competitive, and the markets are so well developed, and it is really hard to bring anything new and anything unusual to this market. And moreover, when everyone is talking about, oh, I'm sorry, I just recognized that I don't have my camera turned on. Yeah, and the other point, which is very interesting when you're considering different markets, is the language. And when we're talking about Ukrainian language, it isn't really significant costs for translating the website, to translating the product. But when it goes to Armenia, or when we're talking about Georgia, the language is a really big deal, and the script is a really big deal, and it is really hard to manage these websites without the local team, and the local presence should be really significant. So I would say that Ukraine is the most attractive piece here.
And do you think that basically language really costs so much? I mean, in terms of the license fees, in terms of the cost of operation, does it really makes this huge difference?
You should understand that it is not only the translation of the website, it is the having the staff. So, for example, if you are an international company and you are targeting to Armenia or to Georgia or to Ukraine, you probably want to have as much as possible staff placed in your headquarters. For example, it could be Malta, it can be UK, it can be Sweden, any country. And it is way easier to find the customer service agents, to find relevant marketing people to be hired in your place, rather than and speak in Ukrainian, rather than to find Georgians or Armenians to be working in your office. And it brings the costs higher, definitely.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pavel. Do you have any other slides, any topics to share? I guess we can proceed to the questions.
Yeah, it's talking time now.
Yeah, I will add that one more side note. The next time we should add the samples of the local script to the presentation to let people understand how it is challenging to read and to develop the product using the local languages. So Cyrillic is very familiar to everyone in Europe, but Georgian and Armenian script, they are so different and they are so complicated.
Fresh idea. We'll think about this definitely. Okay, let's proceed to the questions. Okay, we have already answered to the question related to having $1 million in relation to the which market we should proceed. The next question is quite interesting in terms of the topic of the webinar. If we have any updates about the Romanian market, obviously we have. Please write down to any means of communication to us. We will share all the updates. And just a quick comment, we are planning to have one more webinar upcoming, not maybe in coming months, but somewhere further down the road, related also to Romanian market. So we will share all the updates there. And meanwhile, we can share all the marketing info and all the updates related to Romanian market in personal messages. So please feel free to write down to us. Would be happy to navigate you through this. And obviously, we have two questions about Ukraine. What are the key regulatory changes currently affecting the Ukrainian gaming market, and how can global operators effectively navigate this evolving legal framework to capitalize on opportunities? I would say that regulatory changes right now are the following. Basically, this is the transformation of the current regulatory authority to the new body, which is going to be properly working. I'm not sure it's 100%, but according to my resources, it's going to be created under the Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, under the observation, obviously. We'll see how this new authority will work, but from the whole, I would say, idea of the revoking of the current regime is to create a working and efficient authority that can deal with all regulatory stuff and also with regulatory issues of the operators who are operating on the gambling market. And the next thing is high license fees and the taxes. I guess it has already passed like 3 or 4 years since I have been talking about these two issues, but they are still on the plate and they are still yet to be resolved in terms of the current regulatory changes. The next question, if Dmitry have anything to add, please feel free, but I guess maybe you can name other regulatory changes which can affect Ukrainian gaming market.
Well, I think the launch of monitoring system may have some effect. As of now, the amount of license fees, yearly license fees are tripled for betting licenses, for online, for slot machine license, and for online casino licenses. So basically, it is made to compensate for the material impossibility of the government to know how much money in essence the gambling operators generate from the players. And yeah, I think launching that system and getting the license fees lower would definitely increase the ranking of Ukraine in competitive list of jurisdictions to get into the market. Good story.
Yeah. Indeed, good old story. I'll not say that it's a really good one, but it is what it is. Moving further in terms of the questions which we have been asked, how can operators in the Ukrainian market implement responsible gambling practice to ensure compliance with local regulations while fostering sustainable market growth? I would say here that actually, despite overall, I would say, hassle related to the compliance requirements of the Ukrainian gambling market, in terms of the responsible gambling measures, from my perspective, it seems quite easy to adhere to these requirements due to the fact that there are a lot of connection with the state system DIA, which helps to identify the players in a short and very speedy manner and very efficient one, I would say. Also, there is the registry of self-excluded players. So I would say that Ukraine here is quite a good example in terms of implementation of these responsible gambling measures. And obviously, this connection to the government systems like DIA for identification of the player definitely makes the operation smoother and much more efficient. Dmitry, if you have anything to help, please feel free.
No, I think we are right on the spot here.
Perfect. Yeah, hi Zoltán. A long time no see.
Yeah, long time no see, but it has been great staying in the background and hearing all these updates. So, guys, you knocked it out of the ballpark again. And we really like and enjoy these sessions because they are such well put together in terms of information. Congratulations for it. I don't know who works on the visuals for those presentations, but congratulations.
Dmitry, he is the hero here. I can give it to the whole audience that he is the guy who implements all this into the presentation, and I'm always looking with the pleasure at this presentation. So yeah, this is the hero here, I would say. We also have some questions related to the marketing campaigns and advertising channels for gambling operators in Armenia, Georgia, and Ukraine.
Yeah.
I think that in order not to waste some time on the webinar, we have a dedicated pages and dedicated marketing materials related to the advertisement in these regions, where you can find all the relevant information. Once again, please feel free to reach out to us in any possible ways via Zoltán, via our website, via our LinkedIn. You can write down everywhere you want, and we will share digest of the pivotal information related to the advertising and the particular aspects of the marketing campaigns you can launch. Obviously, these materials are not, I would say, devoted to your particular marketing campaign, as we don't know them, but overall, they are devoted basically to the key regulations related to advertising, so you can digest how you can actually advertise on these markets. I guess nothing more from our end. Yeah, and I just wanted to thank Hipther Agency one more time for presenting this opportunity. To give you all these insights in terms of these markets. By the way, if anybody is going to Lisbon next week, I would be happy to catch up with everybody and have a meeting to discuss whatever you want to discuss. So yeah, please feel free
Especially
to
ad restrictions.
Yeah, those are very
Romanian
important at
updates,
the moment. Yeah. Those are very important things. So thank you guys once again, and thank you for our audience for sticking around. The recording of this webinar will be available as soon as we stop this webinar. It will be available on LinkedIn and on YouTube. We will also share the link once again. If you missed it and you're watching the recording, make sure to reach out to these guys on LinkedIn if you have some questions. And yeah, we probably will be back in about 2 or 3 months with another one, right?
Yes.
Right.
Great, with great pleasure. And quick comment on next actions. We're gonna dispatch our presentation. We need to a little bit tweak it in some ways, but in 2-3 weeks, apologies, next week we're gonna have a conference, so we would be a little bit busy with other stuff. But in 2-3 weeks we're gonna dispatch this presentation for the greater audience in order everybody to see the particular things that we are implementing into these presentations, which Dmitry kindly made for all of us.
All right, thank you guys. Have a fun day ahead, and have a great weekend. It's Friday.
Yeah, finally. Thank you very much, Zoltán. Great pleasure. Thank you very much,
Take good care.
everybody.
Bye,
Yes.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.